Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we will be talking about the 2024 presidential election, another update on this seemingly very contentious and close, a dead heat of a presidential race, but I am here to tell you that it in reality will not be that close. I know this is a bold take, and this is coming from a completely objective point of view, truly, but in the end, even though every single poll is indicating that it is an incredibly close race, probably with Kamala Harris with a slight edge over Donald Trump in the polling, in the end, come election day or the days after, Kamala Harris will win by a substantial amount, likely right where Joe Biden won by in the 2020 election if it loads here, right around 306 to 232. So we're going to get to all of this. We're going to get to the 2024 election. We're going to get to the 2022 midterm elections and comparing it. We're going to look at 2016 and 2020, how Donald Trump was way underestimated in those polls, and he no longer has that strange appeal that voters didn't feel comfortable repeating in the polls that they now do. We are now going to be talking about Roe. This is a post-Roe era. That is extremely important. So in my election prediction right now, first and foremost, I have Wisconsin, lean Democrat, Michigan, lean Democrat, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Nevada, I'm extremely confident are all lean Democrat. I mean, suburbs in Pennsylvania are going to turn out dramatically for Kamala Harris. I don't even think Pennsylvania will be that close in the end. I think she really outpaces Biden's 2020 margin in Pennsylvania especially, but as well as Michigan. Nevada probably does get a little closer. I also think that she wins North Carolina, probably by just over a percentage point. And Arizona is very, very iffy right now. They're just about 50-50. I guess I won't call it since this isn't an official election prediction. And then I have Texas as lean, Florida as likely Republican, and I do have Georgia as tilt Republican. If Kamala Harris wins Arizona, then you can see 303 to 235, she basically matches Joe Biden's 2020 margin, just different because of electoral count changes. So she flips North Carolina, but loses Georgia. So as I said, every single poll is indicating that this is an extremely close race. She is leading in the nationwide polls by an average of 2.5%. This would be a very close margin on the electoral map, probably a very narrow Trump victory, but when you look at the swing states, she's ahead in Wisconsin, ahead in Pennsylvania, ahead in Nevada, and ahead in Michigan. So that would be a slight victory, 276 electoral votes for her. In the 538 forecast here, they run simulations. They project Kamala Harris has a 55% chance of winning the election. Not horrendous, I mean, pretty bad, but extremely, extremely close. Now, interestingly, today, what we got was a prediction from Michael Moore. So if you don't know, Michael Moore is a film producer. He's not really, he's not at all involved in numbers or official election predictions or anything like that. But if you don't know, first I'll get to 2024. Michael Moore predicts that the 2016 election, that the 2024 election, this tab, won't even be that close. I guess it is, oh my god, sorry. So this is the right headline here. So Michael Moore is saying that Donald Trump is toast, that Kamala Harris is going to win a Democratic win in the midterm elections. Now, 2016 is one thing. That's shocking in itself. But 2022 midterm is predicting a Democratic win. It was basically a wash. Democrats gained in the Senate. Republicans gained a few in the House. That is incredible. Nobody could have expected the Democrats to perform not nearly as well as they did in 2022 midterms, but Michael Moore did. And it all comes back to the fact, especially with 2022, it all comes back to the voter block of women, because now they actually have a good reason to vote. This is the major difference from 2020. Now, Joe Biden won the 2020 election already without the overturning of Roe. But what 2022 proved was that women now had a much stronger reason to vote than any time else before. And they turned out, even though it wasn't reflected in the polling missed how much women would turn out, and for good reason. They turned out at historic rates, and again, this was right after Roe was overturned. It was a major centerpiece of Democratic campaigning, and what do you notice? It is a centerpiece of the Harris campaign in 2024. Kamala Harris, being a woman herself, makes the overturning of Roe more relevant or just as relevant as 2022, and women will turn out at a higher pace. And of course, they are going to do better than they did in 2022. 2022 was a wash, as I said before. And that's because of, a multitude of reasons. You had record high inflation. You had an incredibly unpopular president, Joe Biden, where his approval rating, right before the election, was at negative 10 points more disapproved than approved. And now, today, Kamala Harris stands at a higher net favorability rating than unfavorability rating. A positive net favorability. So 2022, with the perceived unpopularity of the unpopularity of Joe Biden and the perceived unpopularity of the Democratic Party and their handling of the state of the country, right? The state of the country, to put it simply, was the reason, the strong disapproval of the state of the country and the direction that we were going, positive or negative. All of that led everyone, and of course the polls, to believe, and the polls to, demonstrate that it would be a red wave in 2022. But what polls failed to capture was the turnout of women. I have been saying this entire race. I've never had Kamala Harris losing this race. I believe from the day she jumped into the race, I've had Kamala Harris winning because of this fact. Women are going to break so heavily for Kamala Harris, where as long as the male vote stays relatively stagnant compared to 2020, Trump can gain a few points, and that's fine for Kamala Harris. But women are going to break so heavily for Kamala Harris where it doesn't even matter what happens with the male vote. As long as it's relatively normal, it will produce a Kamala Harris victory. Women like to vote. They love to vote. And this gigantic voter block is what is going to hand Kamala Harris victory in 2024. The Harris campaign has problems. Do not get me wrong. They could be doing a lot better. I feel, I'm at least in the polls. I feel like they could. It's interesting, how poorly they are doing in the polls. Considering everything about Donald Trump. But again, in the end, I don't think it will. All these numbers, I don't think will even matter in the end, because really, just like Michael Moore, the track record of Michael Moore proves that, numbers don't tell us everything. Typically, if you look just simply at polls, they tell us nothing. And what I will say about numbers and the polls in this video is that pollsters are scared because they completely failed for quite a few elections now. 2016, they got it dead wrong. 2020, they overestimated Biden by even more than they did Hillary. In 2022, they got it wrong on the opposite end, completely wrong. So in 2024, they're heading into the election scared because they are an industry. Organizations and companies pay them to conduct polls. The polling industry is in a bad place right now. And what this means is that they don't want to get another election wrong. So what they are doing, I believe, is really making an emphasis on Trump voters. I believe, considering that they way underestimated Trump in 2016 and 2020, obviously they expected Biden to win by 8.4. He won by 4.5. They're off by a pretty, important 4 percentage points. So, they got, both these elections so wrong. Where, I don't want to say that they're oversampling Trump voters this time, but I do believe that they were putting a heavy emphasis on the Trump voting areas to make sure they are not wrong once again like they were. So I don't think that Harris at all needs to worry about being overestimated in polls. The Harris campaign, they don't have to worry about Trump being underestimated. I am pretty confident of that. And again, I don't think that they really have anything to worry about because there's so much to say in a video like this. I brought up the main points, but Donald Trump is not the same type of candidate he was in 2016, and this is not the same type of election. 2016, I mean, I just think about it. Considering how narrowly Trump won in 2016, looking at 2024, he should not feel comfortable with a margin like this in 2016, so narrow. You know, if he lost these 3 states that he won by less than a percentage point, he would have lost the election. It should have been even bigger than this, relative to where we are right now in 2024 and how close it is. Because in 2016, you had a pretty unpopular outgoing president, Obama. You had massive outsourcing of jobs, numerous, hugely unpopular trade deals, NAFTA, TPP, that the Democratic candidate supported, which of course did give this region to Trump. You had the most, what was Hillary less favorable than Donald Trump? I think so. That's a stark difference with 2024. You had a multitude of factors that, make sense that it could produce a Trump victory, just like Michael Moore predicted in 2016. In 2024, he has nothing. He has almost nothing. Sure, Joe Biden is unpopular, and 2022 proved that if he's not on the ballot, it doesn't even matter. People will still vote Democratic. I don't think it'll be close. Again, I think that Kamala Harris is the strong favorite to win this election. Obviously, these margins are still relatively close. Donald Trump can come back, and this race could narrow up, of course. If Trump takes actual lead in the national polls, yeah, that'd be huge. That means that it would be a very close race, probably Trump favored. But right now, I'm saying if the election were held tomorrow, there are multiple non-numerical factors that, doesn't make sense for the election to be all that close. It only makes sense that Kamala Harris wins by quite a lot, pretty substantially. So thank you all for watching this video. If you all enjoyed it, make sure to subscribe down below. That helps out a lot. Drop a comment to let me hear your thoughts on this topic. Drop a like as well. And I will see you all later.